The Galactic Council's classification guide listed the Zepheran as apex predators of the known universe, which should have been the first clue that the cosmos had a wicked sense of humor. These towering reptiloids, with shimmering scales and fearsome retractable claws, spent most of their time boasting about their hunting prowess, and the rest of it falling comically short of their own hype. Supreme Tracker Thyrex stood on the bridge of the Hunter's Dominion, their most advanced pursuit vessel, admiring his reflection in a polished control panel. His ceremonial hunting garb gleamed with trophies, supposedly from 100 worlds, though anyone who counted would realize the number barely reached 15. Not that the Zepheran ever bothered with such trivialities. Supreme Tracker, First Scout Zynak called out, his tone a blend of obsequiousness and genuine excitement. We've identified a new world in Sector 74C. Initial scans suggest. Ah, this is delightful. Primitive defenses and abundant biological signatures. Thyrex's secondary heart thudded with anticipation. The Zepheran had long since subdued all the worthy prey species in their region of the galaxy. Their last supposed challenge had been a colony of giant space mollusks that turned out to be sluggish, non-aggressive blobs with excellent PR. "Show me," Thyrex commanded, striking what he considered an imposing stance. The crew discreetly avoided glancing at his awkward pose, which resembled a lizard attempting yoga. The holographic display shimmered to life, revealing a blue-green planet swirled with white clouds. A few primitive satellites orbited it like mechanical debris, and faint bursts of radio waves leaked into the cosmos. Analyzing their capabilities now, Second Scout Veril announced, claws tapping across the console. Nuclear armaments, but none capable of breaching our shields. Their primary weapons appear to be chemically propelled projectiles, and, wait, this can't be correct, they still use combustion engines. The bridge erupted into laughter, a grating cacophony reminiscent of a bag of startled hyenas. Thyrex smirked, envisioning a new trophy for his collection. What of their dominant species, he asked, already imagining the ornamental possibilities of alien skulls mounted on his wall. Bipedal mammals, Zynak replied, scrolling through data. Soft-skinned, no natural armor. Their physical profiles suggest prey behavior. They've colonized most of the planet, but remain divided into primitive tribes. Perfect, Thyrex grinned, revealing jagged teeth in what he assumed was a menacing expression. Prepare the hunting party. Let us begin with one of their remote, frigid regions. It's been too long since we faced a true challenge. The crew cheered, their enthusiasm undiminished by the fact that their last challenge had been a species of sentient gas clouds that surrendered after a strong breeze. As the Hunter's Dominion slipped into a stealth orbit, the Zepheran failed to notice certain small but significant details in their eagerness to label humans as prey. They overlooked the countless testaments to humanity's resilience. The fossilized spears in museums, the cave paintings of coordinated hunts, the cultural obsession with conquering the natural world. They would learn, soon enough. Below, in Alaska's vast wilderness, humans went about their routines, oblivious to the aliens watching them. Veteran guide John Carter lounged in the cozy interior of the Last Frontier Lodge, swapping tall tales with his fellow guides. His latest involved a moose, a grizzly bear, and what he swore was the most forgiving park ranger in Alaska. His storytelling was interrupted by Lodge owner Maria Chin bursting through the door, her face pale. "You guys need to see this," she gasped. Motion sensors picked up something big, out by Glacier Ridge. Meanwhile, the Zepheran hunting party materialized in a snow-blasted Alaskan wilderness. The temperature hovered at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, a brutal welcome for creatures accustomed to a balmy, stable climate. "This is perfect," Commander Drax declared through chattering mandibles, though his environmental suit was already frosting over. "The prey will never expect apex predators here. Maybe because even apex predators have the sense to hibernate," muttered Junior Hunter Solis, earning a silencing glare. Miles away, John, Maria, and their team prepared to investigate, Among them were Alex Rodriguez, an expert tracker who once outsmarted John in the lodge's annual hunt competition, and Kai Nakamura, a retired Special Forces operator with a knack for outmaneuvering both wildlife and would-be poachers. "They're glowing purple," Maria said, showing the grainy footage from motion sensors. "Since when do moose or bears do that?" "They're heading for Glacier Ridge," Alex noted, lacing up her boots. "Bad choice." John grinned. "The Widow's Walk? They'll learn why it's earned the name." The Zepheran hunt quickly devolved into a disaster. Snow was cold, snow was wet, and their thermal suits were catastrophically unprepared for the conditions. Advanced equipment faltered, and scanners were scrambled by the storm. Worse, they failed to notice human tracks shadowing their own until it was too late. "Commander, we're being followed," Solis yelped, just as a snowball smacked him in the back of the head. The group spun around, plasma weapons at the ready, only to find empty wilderness. Somewhere, a voice chuckled over stolen frequencies. "Guess the galaxy's apex predators aren't used to the cold." The humans had begun what John called the tourist treatment. Small fires were strategically lit and abandoned to confuse scanners. The Zepheran stumbled into carefully crafted traps, from snow bridges that collapsed into icy streams to avalanches triggered with precision. "Primitive tools," Drax snarled, his mandibles quivering with frustration. "They rely on brute force, not strategy." "Oh, we have brute force," Alex's voice quipped over their comms. "But why bother when Mother Nature's on our side?" By the time the storm reached its peak, the Zepheran were exhausted, freezing, and terrified. One by one, they were picked off, not by plasma fire or brute strength, but by tactics honed through millennia of persistence hunting. "We are predators." Drax howled into the blizzard. A mocking voice drifted back. "Not today." As the surviving Zepheran were forced to retreat, they realized the truth. Humanity had never been prey. They were predators, and far better at it than the Zepheran had ever imagined. The hunter's dominion orbited above Earth, its crew anxiously monitoring the hunting party's progress or lack thereof. On the bridge, Supreme Tracker Thyrex paced, his iridescent scales flickering with unease. The comms had fallen silent hours ago, and the last garbled transmission suggested something had gone terribly wrong. "Supreme Tracker," Zynak began hesitantly, his claws twitching over the controls. "The storm on the planet's surface is intensifying. Our sensors are detecting faint plasma discharges, but no life signs from the hunting party." "Nonsense," Thyrex snapped, his voice brittle. "Our hunters are equipped with the most advanced survival technology in the galaxy. They can handle a mere weather anomaly." Veril, the second scout, squinted at the data on her console. "Supreme Tracker, their equipment failures suggest environmental factors we did not account for. This planet's atmosphere is unstable, and the prey species." "Primitive," Thyrex interrupted, slamming a clawed fist onto the console. "They are soft-skinned gatherers. The hunting party is likely toying with them, testing their limits before the final strike." But even as Thyrex spoke, a deep unease settled over the bridge. None of the crew wanted to admit what was becoming increasingly obvious. The hunting party had underestimated this world and its inhabitants. "Shall we prepare a retrieval mission?" Veril asked cautiously. Thyrex hissed. To admit defeat and mount a rescue would be a humiliation of galactic proportions. "No. Send a secondary hunting party. Double their numbers. Equip them with enhanced gear. We will show these creatures why the Zepheran are unmatched." The surviving members of the hunting party huddled in a makeshift shelter, a shallow snow cave carved in desperation. Commander Drax's environmental suit emitted a faint whine, warning of imminent system failure. His mandibles chattered uncontrollably, not just from the cold, but from fear. "This is madness," Solis muttered, his scaled face pale. "They're playing with us." "We are the hunters," Drax growled through clenched teeth. "We do not succumb to prey." Solis gestured wildly at their surroundings. Does this look like we're winning? We've lost half our team to the environment alone, and the rest are being picked off like... Pray, came a voice from the storm, dripping with mockery. Both Zepheran froze. The voice wasn't human. It carried a metallic echo, transmitted over their failing comms. Yet it was unmistakably one of their tormentors. You've wandered into the wrong wilderness, my friends. The voice continued. This isn't a hunting ground. It's a proving ground. Solis grabbed his plasma weapon, but his hands trembled too much to aim properly. Show yourself, he screamed into the blizzard. Oh, I will, the voice replied. But not yet. You've got more surprises coming. Drax activated his wrist beacon, signaling an emergency pickup from the hunter's dominion. The signal blinked weakly in the freezing air, but there was no response. John Carter leaned back in his chair, sipping a steaming cup of coffee while Alex inspected their arsenal. So, what's the plan? He asked casually, as if discussing a Sunday hike instead of stalking extraterrestrials. Alex set down her rifle with a satisfied grin. We keep pushing them. They're breaking faster than I expected. Kai, who was checking a set of well-worn survival knives, glanced up. They're not used to being outmaneuvered. Everything they rely on, tech, strength, numbers, means nothing out here. Maria chimed in, her laptop displaying the lodge's motion sensors. We've herded them into Widow's Walk. The only way out is the Western Ridge. And that's a dead end once the snow starts falling harder. Perfect, John said, rubbing his hands together. Time for Phase 2? Alex nodded. Phase 2. John stood, his expression gleeful. Let's give them a taste of what happens when you hunt humans. The Zepheran reinforcements arrived in force, 12 hunters strong. They materialized in the wilderness in a flash of light, their enhanced environmental suits humming with upgraded technology to combat the planet's conditions. Fan out, the leader, Subcommander Ryzox ordered. His voice was cold and calculating, lacking the overconfidence that had doomed the first party. Form 3 squads. Begin a sweep of the area. Maintain communication at all times. The hunters moved with precision, their thermal scanners sweeping the landscape. They quickly located the tracks of their predecessors, as well as human footprints crisscrossing the snow. These creatures are audacious, Ryzox muttered, examining a set of boot prints. They're not running. They're circling. They're hunting us, one of the junior hunters said uneasily. Ryzox straightened, his tail flicking in irritation. Impossible. They're merely trying to confuse us. Maintain focus. But confusion was exactly what the humans were aiming for. At Widow's Walk, the humans had set their trap. The terrain was a treacherous maze of narrow ridges, sheer cliffs, and ice-covered boulders. It was a place where even experienced guides tread carefully. But for the Zepheran, it was a death trap waiting to be sprung. The first squad of reinforcements entered the area cautiously, their movements disciplined. They scanned for signs of life, but the storm distorted their readings. They didn't notice the humans concealed in the shadows above them until it was too late. A series of timed explosives detonated, triggering a controlled avalanche that buried half the squad in an instant. The survivors scrambled for cover, their plasma rifles firing wildly into the swirling snow. From the ridge above, Kai watched through binoculars, calmly noting their movements. They're scattering, just like we planned. John grinned and radioed Alex. Your turn. On it, she replied. Moments later, a flare shot into the sky, its bright red light visible even through the storm. The remaining Zepheran looked up in confusion, just in time for a second avalanche to crash down on their position. As the reinforcements regrouped, Ryzox barked orders over the comms. Stay together. Do not let the prey separate us. But the humans weren't interested in brute force. They were methodical, using the terrain and weather to their advantage. Fires were lit in strategic locations to lure the aliens into ambushes. Snow bridges were weakened to collapse under their weight. And everywhere the Zepheran went, They heard the humans' voices on their stolen comm frequencies. "Getting tired yet?" John's voice taunted. "You should have stayed in space," Alex added. Rhyzox roared in frustration, firing his plasma weapon into the void. "Face us, cowards." "Oh, we will," Kai replied calmly. "When we're ready." By the time the storm began to subside, only 4 of the 12 reinforcements remained. Rhyzox's confidence had crumbled into desperation. His advanced equipment was malfunctioning, and his squad was demoralized. "We need extraction," one of the hunters pleaded. "This planet is a death trap." But the hunter's dominion remained eerily silent. Somewhere above, Supreme Tracker Thyrex watched the disaster unfold, his pride preventing him from intervening. On the ground, the humans regrouped. The Zepheran survivors had been pushed into a corner of Widow's Walk with no escape. Kai checked his rifle and nodded to the others. "Let's finish this." As the humans moved in, the Zepheran would finally learn why this primitive world had never been conquered, and why its inhabitants were far more dangerous than any predator they'd ever faced. The Zepheran hunters, battered and frozen, huddled in the shadow of a jagged ice wall at the end of Widow's Walk. Sub-Commander Rhyzox's talons dug into the snow as he surveyed his remaining team. They were supposed to be the finest warriors the galaxy had to offer, but now they were little more than cornered animals. "Hold this position," Rhyzox commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. "If we cannot contact the hunter's dominion, we will survive until they retrieve us." "Survive!" One of the junior hunters, Velcro, snapped, her scales dulled from the cold. "They're not letting us survive. They're toying with us." Before Rhyzox could reply, a shrill whistle pierced the storm. It echoed off the ice walls, disorienting the group. Plasma rifles snapped up, scanning the shadows. From the swirling snow, a shadow emerged. One figure, human. It moved with deliberate confidence, its silhouette framed by the storm like a predator stalking wounded prey. The humans weren't waiting anymore. They were coming. Jack Thompson stepped into the clearing, his rifle slung casually over his shoulder. Snow clung to his thick coat, and his breath curled in the freezing air. Behind him, Alex and Kai flanked the ridge, their movements swift and silent, while Anna stayed hidden, her scope trained on the Zepheran from a concealed perch. "You look lost," Jack called out, his voice carrying over the wind. Rhyzox snarled, stepping forward with his plasma rifle raised. "You dare face us alone, prey?" Jack chuckled, shaking his head. "You still don't get it, do you?" Rhyzox didn't wait for an answer. He fired. The plasma bolt streaked through the storm, but Jack wasn't there anymore. The human had moved, vanishing into the snow like a ghost. "Where?" Velcro began, but her words were cut short as Alex and Kai opened fire from above, their shots expertly placed to disable the Zephyran's remaining equipment. "Flank left." Rhyzox barked. Velcro and another hunter scrambled to follow the order, but the ground beneath them collapsed. Anna had triggered a preset charge, sending them tumbling into a shallow crevasse. Their screams faded as snow and ice buried them. Rhyzox's mind raced as he reevaluated the situation. Every move they made was countered before they even acted. Every escape route was cut off before they reached it. This wasn't a random series of events. It was a strategy, a calculated dismantling of everything the Zepheran prided themselves on. "Why do you do this?" Rhyzox roared into the storm, his voice cracking. "You could have fled. Why fight us?" From somewhere unseen, Alex's voice carried through the comms they had hijacked. "Fled? You're on our planet. You're in our backyard. And you thought we were the prey." Kai's voice followed, cold and deliberate. "We didn't ask for this fight, but you brought it. So now, you'll learn the difference between hunting and survival." Another shot rang out, shattering the last functioning plasma rifle in Rhyzox's hands. He stumbled backward, his confidence completely unraveled. The storm began to clear, revealing the humans standing in a loose circle around the remaining Zephyran. Jack stepped forward, lowering his rifle. His expression was calm, almost pitying. "You've spent your whole lives believing you're the galaxy's apex predators," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "You've conquered weaker species, relied on your tech, your numbers, your strength. But you never learned the first rule of hunting." Rhyzox's mandibles trembled. "And what rule is that?" Jack crouched down to meet the alien's gaze. "Know your prey." For a moment, the only sound was the wind whistling through the ice. Then Anna's voice crackled over the comms. "Got movement on their ship. They're trying to extract." "Let them," Jack said, standing. He glanced at Kai, Alex, and Anna, his expression hardening. "We've made our point. High above, aboard the Hunter's Dominion, Supreme Tracker Thyrex stared at the unfolding disaster. The reinforcements were reduced to 2 survivors, their comms filled with broken pleas for extraction. Thyrex's pride warred with the harsh reality. They had lost. "Bring them back," he ordered reluctantly. The extraction beacon activated, pulling Rhyzox and his remaining hunter into the ship's hold. They collapsed on the floor, their once pristine armor scorched and cracked, their spirits shattered. Thyrex approached, his claws clicking against the metal deck. "Report." Rhyzox lifted his head, his gaze hollow. "They are not prey," he said simply. "They are something else." Thyrex's scales rippled with unease. "You mean predators?" "No," Rhyzox replied, his voice trembling. "Worse. They are survivors, and they are better at it than we ever will be." The Hunter's Dominion left Earth's orbit in silence, its crew too humiliated to speak. Word of their failure would spread, of course. It always did. But what they had learned on that frozen, unforgiving planet would haunt them for generations. In the lodge below, the humans celebrated their victory with quiet satisfaction. Jack raised a mug of steaming coffee, grinning at his companions. "Think they'll be back?" Alex asked, leaning against the window to watch the retreating alien ship. Jack shrugged. "If they're smart, they'll stay as far away as possible." Anna smirked. "And if they're not," Jack chuckled, raising his mug higher, "then they'll get another lesson. And next time, we won't be so nice." Far above, in the cold reaches of space, the Zepheran began to rewrite their hunting manuals. The section on humans was short and simple. "Do not engage." The Zepheran flagship, Hunter's Dominion, retreated beyond Earth orbit, its hull scarred by failure and its crew burdened with shame. Supreme Tracker Thyrex watched the blue-green planet dwindle on the view screen. A world that had seemed so insignificant now loomed large in their collective consciousness. "Begin the withdrawal," Thyrex ordered. His voice carried no pride, only resolve. They had underestimated the species, and it had cost them dearly, and marked this system as forbidden territory. Rhyzox, still nursing the wounds to both his body and pride, approached cautiously. "They didn't just defeat us," he said quietly, his voice heavy. "They taught us." Thyrex didn't respond immediately, but his tail flicked in a rare display of unease. "Finally," he muttered, "then let the galaxy learn from our failure." The Hunter's Dominion disappeared into the void, leaving Earth unchallenged. Back on the icy plains of Alaska, Jack Thompson, Anna Rodriguez, Kai Patel, and Alex Chin stood outside the Last Chance Lodge, their breath visible in the crisp, cold air. The alien ship was nothing more than a fading glimmer in the night sky. "Think that's the last of them?" Anna asked, lowering her binoculars. Jack took a long sip from his thermos and smirked. "For now. But who knows how many of their buddies are out there?" Kai crossed his arms. "If they're smart, they'll tell the rest of the galaxy to steer clear. And if they're not," Alex asked, raising an eyebrow. Jack grinned. "Then we'll teach them the same lesson." The group fell silent for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the wilderness. The storm had passed, leaving the landscape pristine and undisturbed. It was a rare moment of peace, but they all knew it wouldn't last. Word of the Zepheran failure spread quickly through the Galactic Council. The report from the hunter's dominion was blunt and uncharacteristically humble. Do not approach Earth. The humans are not prey. They are predators who hunt with persistence and precision, wielding their environment as a weapon. To challenge them is to invite ruin. In the hallowed chambers of the Council, the message was met with disbelief and fear. A race capable of turning the galaxy's most feared hunters into trembling fugitives? It defied every assumption about so-called primitive species. A Kelleran ambassador, her spindly limbs quivering, addressed the assembly. What do we do if the humans decide to expand beyond their world? To seek us out? A nervous murmur rippled through the room. We wait, said an elder of the Zenari, the galaxy's oldest and wisest species. And we pray they remain content with their world. At the lodge, Jack stood on the porch, staring into the distance. Snow crunched behind him as Anna joined him, her breath a faint mist in the cold air. Do you think they'll ever come back? She asked, her voice low. Jack shrugged, his usual bravado giving way to a rare moment of seriousness. Maybe, but if they do, we'll be ready. Anna nodded, following his gaze to the horizon. We always are. Behind them, the others gathered around the fireplace, already swapping tales about the encounter. Their laughter echoed through the lodge, a stark contrast to the tension of the past few days. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about sending a message. Earth might not have the technology of the stars, but it had something far more dangerous. People who refused to back down. As the night deepened, a shooting star streaked across the sky, a reminder of the vastness of the galaxy and the countless unknowns it held. Somewhere out there, the Zepheran would lick their wounds and reconsider their place in the universe. But for humanity, life went on. The snow continued to fall, the wolves howled in the distance, and the people of Earth remained as they always had been. Survivors, fighters, and the unexpected predators of the galaxy. For now, the stars were silent. But if they ever dared to speak again, humanity would be listening. The end